Good afternoon, Council. It is so great to be meeting with you all again over Teams Live. As you may recall, our last time we all met was in person at our in-person showcase, which seems like it was, a decade ago, but it was only a few months ago. So it's so great to be with you all again. We have an exciting strategic presentation for you all today. This is our Q4, our final council meeting for this calendar year. So I know it's your Q3, but it's our Q4 calendar presentation for us. So again, welcome back everyone online to the M365 Council, our presentation for today. We will be going through a strategic vision for modernizing work at the Government of Canada. What is the Council? The Council is hosted by us, Orangutech. Who is Orangutech? Orangutech is a Microsoft Solutions partner in modern work. Solutions partner being the new designations through the cloud program through Microsoft. We deal with Government of Canada. That's how we've met many of you. And we are involved in our community, supporting our community through various events and sponsorships. Back in September on the 28th, we had our showcase, our in-person showcase. As you can see in the pictures on the left, Lisa Carroll joined us from Microsoft Canada. She's the GM of Public Sector. She delivered the first keynote of the day alongside Mark Brouillard from DFO. And we also had panel. We had Mike Wright join us from Modern Work. And we had also Lisa Carroll and Anil Dalari spoke with us as well. So it was an awesome day, as you can see on the right. It took a pretty big team at Orangutech to pull it off. There was a ton of effort behind the scenes, but again, we're so happy that we were able to meet you all in person and be able to share that day. Our presentation for today, before we dive right into it, the goal of the Council is to create a community for our members to share M365 challenges, successes, insights, and next steps among public sector departments. We really want to try to help you break down those silos of information as you deal with M365 and deal with a really challenging and changing cloud landscape. So we do have questions open as well. As you can see in the Q&A, you have the ability to ask questions, post those in there, and then we'll review those after. You can submit them through the Teams Live chat. If you're comfortable, please identify yourself, and you have the ability to vote for the questions you want to see. And then we'll go over that Q&A at the end of the presentation. We will also send a recap of the Q&A. We'll send a recap of those questions after the Council, so you'll receive those, a record of those as well. I feel like a lot of the engagement and discussion comes through the questions, so we want to make sure that you're getting that afterwards as well. With us today for a strategic vision for modernizing work at the Government of Canada, we have Jeff Braybrook. Jeff is joining us from Shared Services Canada, where he is a senior collaboration advisor in the digital services branch. We've been working with Jeff for a few years now, and he's agreed to come in and speak to us a little bit about his role, which is always evolving with SSC, but he's responsible for a big workload of M365 at SSC, and we're happy to have him joining us today. So without further ado, I'd like to toss it over to Jeff. Jeff, welcome to the Council.
Thanks a lot, Eric. It's great to be here, and it's kind of an exciting time for all of us. Well, not just because it's Christmas, but we've all gone through the last 3 or 4 years with quite a challenge, is how to transform and modernize the way people work digitally, like really think and act digitally. And we've got a tiger by the tail with 365. So today, what I'm going to do is put some slides up and figure out how to share my screen. For you. Right there. Does that work, Eric?
Looks great to me.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to talk from a couple of lenses, but mainly, as many of you know, and a lot of you I've talked to, we've shared notes as to how SSC internally for our 12,000 people were able to get all these tools out, but more importantly, how have we been able to realize that change in culture and getting people to adopt new ways of working. So I'm going to go and summarize some of that, but I thought a lot about this. Last time, I think you had Kelly and Mark present a wonderful journey about SSC a couple of meetings ago. But I thought, what are, to me, kind of the four most important, impactful things that we experienced or had to deal with or enabled or did that we can talk about today, and probably the most important things that for us we think might be worth sharing on your own journey. So I'll begin with learning how to change my slides. So we sat down with Orangutech, talked and said, you know, what are the kind of the things that everybody's looking for? Like one of them is obviously making the most of your investment in 365, providing and getting advice and guidance for all the departmental responsibilities that people have to do and drive, navigating that cultural change to improve the way we work, and driving success through increased GC-wide collaboration. And I'll pretty much end with that. Where can you go? What's happening? And it's all kind of cool. So those four things that really worked for us were, we really had to felt we needed a theme, a North Star guiding principles, like a roadmap. And everything else would be driven under that. I'll get more on that in a minute. We learned that having a product management team with clear ownership, and it recognized ownership gave you the authority to have a good pathway forward. And absolutely had to make sure the business leaders, senior execs, and people managers got it. But most of what we did, and we'll probably spend kind of most of the time on that over the next few minutes, is relentlessly driving adoption and culture change. I love that everybody thinks, and I'm proud of the team, that we have this amazing 365 Central. Anyone who's seen it says it's beautiful, it's great navigation, has everything you wanted to know. It documents everything that people have and what we do. But that's kind of static. You've got to bring it to people and focus it, and I'll talk about that a little bit too. So a little bit more detail. That whole theme, that branding, that the intended outcome, for example, is modern workplace collaboration with a great user experience, is really important. It's your guiding light for ongoing decision making without overreacting to concerns about risks that can be mitigated, such as content sprawl. The product management team is something we built, we had, and kind of in the early days of the pandemic, we kind of made all these decisions pretty much almost daily. And everybody kind of came along and were good with it because we were clear on who owned the product, and that drove the governance, which was, you know, you're meeting with that product team weekly. Things change so much, you have to. The governance, we have our tech board. I mean, there's a monthly executive committee, but our tech board is the energy and the heart and soul of things changing, people getting approvals, that met every couple of weeks. But the idea was you're really on the concept of governance. You know, Microsoft talks a lot about the 400 little settings you can have across your tenant, and that's what they call governance. But behind that is getting people to say, I get it, we need that. You got to have a OneDrive, or you can't work together, or other examples of that, right? But you definitely want to, as much as you can, and we're going to help foster this community of sharing success stories. And it's in business language, like, how have you changed the way you work? How has it sped up the efficiency and the effectiveness of day-to-day work processes? That message has to be in the minds of executives to give you air cover and get these things approved. So your product owner really leads with that collaboration vision, and that drives the user experience. And what we found was we took a lot of risks early, and we got a lot of backing And it's like, yeah, there's some risk, but you just manage it, and you get to your tidy up and your cleanup as you get your IM stuff improving. But really, you've got a tone of trusting people and expecting them to step up to values and ethics, managing information properly and securely, and just you have wonderful panes of glass from the security operations side to monitor and look for outliers. But the real effort I think that the team pulled off, and I'm pretty proud of, is this relentlessly driving adoption and this culture change. Like, asking people that are incredibly busy to change their processes or stop using Excel and move to lists and make sure everything's either in OneDrive or in a team in SharePoint, so even the boss can comment on your slide deck, like from the moment you start your draft. It is something that if people see the benefit, they'll give it a try, they'll put their toe in the water. But it's a campaign, and this is what we found. And I'll going to give you some cool examples of what we did that was fun and interesting for adoption. But we did have things, and I'll show you learning journeys, and we covered all the executive offices and said, here's how to have stunningly great meetings and use the tools. But you should track, and I'll talk about the ways that we track metrics and how we use them. And I'm still the we under the CIO right now, but I just changed jobs, so talking to you and helping as much as I can is my new full-time occupation. So on the North Star, the guiding principles, here our journey was, our North Star was really fostering modern collaboration culture and showing that these are the modern ways of working. So, you know, at the pandemic in March, the idea was people had to work from everywhere, anywhere. And so most of you probably did this same thing, which was Teams meeting and chat. We made sure that everybody got the Office suite right away, and they were able to use the 365 tools, but it would take several months to get it to the, you know, as I'm showing in the chart here, to the desktops, push everything down, get all that. So it was available in the browser, and you had to give people a place to work. And at that time, we gave them everybody got a OneDrive right away. Obviously, as we went through March and April, we had split tunneling. We were able to turn on video, but our guiding light was 365 Central. It was a beautiful employee portal, and anything that was coming, happening, what was new, was there training, what insights, how do you use it, everything went in there, and it still does. So through the year, we moved to the desktops. We got the Office suite down there. That's a big, by the way, as you folks probably know, a big improvement in accessibility comes with the desktop suite. That's where most of those features are. And then 2021, we moved our mail. So we went to EXO, and we defined this whole thing about the new ways of working. And I'm going to cover that in a minute again, and created a champions network. That worked out really great. So the champions come, they feel like they're getting the early scoop on what's coming, what are the best practices on how to bring things to life, and that had a nice vibe to it, and still does. And then more modernization through 2022, 23, and beyond, giving everybody Power Automate that helps them create little flows and automate their day-to-day tasks and do it themselves. And we created a couple of COEs, one for Power Platform, one for Power BI, because we figured that wasn't really core to the whole platform ecosystem. It needed specialized areas of expertise. And then we're looking at a whole lot of work around E5 and modernizing IM to move to SharePoint and away from GCdocs. So that was pretty much kind of our journey. The next piece is, how do we organize the team around it? So that's this really important thing that we learned. Without it, we might have really scrambled. And that was, so this you may have seen, this was my team, and this is what we built. From the left side, where you had your global admins and making sure you met the guardrails and tenant and global admin management, but a lot of changes involve your GAs too, in terms of, well, if we turn that on, if we configure it this way, if we allow guests to have this policy, then, you know, here's an impact. And the next one was a whole area of product and service management. We spent a lot of time making sure and still make sure that anything that's typical comes in tickets, or people don't seem to understand, or it's broken, and how to fix it. All that went up to your service desk, and we made sure that they got all the scripts they needed, so the burden wasn't on the product team for all the answers. But we still had that level 2, level 3 level support when the service desk needed us to chase stuff down. But the product management is a big one. And I'm going to show a couple of screens of what I suggest you use in a minute. But this tracking the message centers, the roadmaps, and all that sort of stuff. We did have a little solutions team, and still do, to help people with some automation around SharePoint. And but basically, when people ask for a team, it's as long as they've taken the team's essentials training, owner training, and know their obligations, it's automatically deployed. But the heart and soul and rhythm of this was the adoption and user experience folks, which were not just updating 365 Central, but saying, wow, we see something going on or a trend that we really want to have a special event and some fun thing to get people aware of it. And that's what I meant by proactive communications all the time. And a bunch of other things, but underneath is really the people you engage a lot in your governance of, from IM policy, accessibility, and across your organization. So from a governance point of view, what we wanted, and this flows through from the North Star, the product team, everything that you're running around going, I'm the lead, or the director for M365 here at the department, and this is so exciting, we got to take a look at it, let's make sure people are engaged and they know the impact, and you get the go ahead to do it. What we found, and this is what we came up with early, was this, what we call the new ways of working. So it's to encourage the adoption. It is your kind of pillars of what's different that will completely change the way you work. And one of the, like I already mentioned, OneDrive is for working smarter with documents, either OneDrive or SharePoint or both. Working from anywhere, the hybrid Teams rooms are pretty amazing, and how you can get much better hybrid engagement. And the idea of running effective meetings was a big one. And that's a nice little roadshow you can run around to your executive ADM, DGO support offices. So the idea was, we're moving in the same direction as an organization, leaving no one behind. Want to make sure we're making the most of all that the ecosystem and platform has to offer. So we built a learning campaign to shift the way we work, guide us to the future. What next worked? Well, that's what we're talking about, that relentlessly getting adoption and culture change. So, I mean, talking about how you do that, and when you think back to the picture of all the people on our team, which is really, you're talking 15 to 20 people, it's not like hundreds. And we're a medium to fair sized department. We're not monster, but you can scale that to some degree, a little bit here and there. But essentially that is a food chain. It's a supply chain that goes kind of from, the tenant management through to, will this roadmap change thing from Microsoft have an impact on the users? How do we configure it? And if it's just what it is, then how do we share it? So the comms and change group always looks at this training stats. Who's attending? Are we getting the effective use? Do we need this course? Do we need to add another one? The adoption scores. We look at the champions network and keep them engaged. The admin group is always making sure we're managing the licenses really, really well. Solutions group is taking in requests, but the support group is also saying, what kind of requests are we getting? Is there a common theme? Do we need to have better guidance? Do we need to have the service desk have more scripts? So that's kind of how we do it. And this is what I mean by the roadmap, this being the Microsoft roadmap and the message center. So anybody who's in your community, your adoption team, all those folks really, you need someone who's kind of your product lead owner, in fact, that looks at the message center and said, what's coming, what's happening, there's a ton of stuff, sort it out, what are the top 3 things, for the weekly meeting, and are we getting our comms people to push out something and let people know this is going to be a change in Teams or a new app or something like that. You've also got your adoption score. Now, take this carefully, because some of the things that Microsoft thinks you ought to be doing, I don't necessarily agree with, but some of our score, our organization's adoption score, this is the SSC panel. It's very, very high, but when it comes down to other things where you're going, why is that a low number? It'll say, well, the problem with your meetings is you don't record 100% of your meetings. Well, that's never going to happen in the government of Canada. It's never going to be a policy, I don't think. So, you can take some of those with a grain of salt, and the others you can use for a guide. This is another nice one. If you don't have it set up in your tenant, talk to your global admin. There's actually instructions on how to do it. It's Microsoft generated Power BI on your usage, and as you click each of these areas, you can see your license assignments, your trending, your product usage, your adoption level. This is kind of a nice Power BI, and you can even subscribe to it being refreshed if that's something that's part of your job and your role. So some of the cool examples we had, and some of it was kind of reactive, guys. So the speed dating, I mean, we found that people kind of weren't getting, we're getting a lot of questions and things that were very fundamental, and not sure people really understood the value of each of the different apps, from planner to lists to forms. And although we did have guidance on it, they kind of weren't going and reading it. So it was an event, and it was right around February, so we called it speed dating. It was like around Valentine's Day, and we had people put on a persona, and they had less than 5 minutes to say, I'm planner, I'm lists, I'm forms, and here's why you want to know more about me, and here's the training you can go to or the place you can go to learn. So that was fun. And after that, we said, well, we need to create some learning journeys. So it was kind of a guide map. If you or any of you are interested, I actually have the course outlines for all of them that we do internally. Our training is not 2 days of Excel in a classroom. This is like 60 to 90 minute. People really need to know about SSC or government policies. They're not getting online from Microsoft, or these are hot topics. People need to know, what are great best practices around using Teams and stuff like that, and meetings. When we had a featured show, now it was kind of like the speed dating, where it was like people on my team came around and said, here's my favorite app, and here's why, and why it's compelling. And then we started sharing success stories, which you can do. Highly recommend that. Like, share the success stories of how people have adopted the new behaviors, showcase how cool they are in your department, or get it from other departments. And we're going to help you find places to get that information. So that was the part about my team for CIO. So now I've moved to the digital services branch, which many of you know as digital DCC, digital collaboration and communication collaboration. I got it backwards. But basically, the role of this group is, the whole group is really to help you with things you have to do and get everybody together with best practices. So we're going to talk about what's coming and what's going on, just so you know you have access to all these resources. And I did share my email on the cover slide, and you're welcome to these slides, so you're welcome to contact me anytime. Okay, GC-wide collaboration. This is what's going on. There's been a playbook, but there's a new, very cool playbook. It's a new design. It's great to navigate. It's on Azure, and so it's actually got like the fuzzy search, the really good search. You get it close, and it's going to come up with suggestions. But most importantly, over the last M365 Council, many of you have been at, and these, everybody has been asking for a whole bunch of things, and we're going to really get on that. More of the material you've been looking for. We're looking for best, not just, you know, how to turn this thing on in the playbook, click here and 8 more steps, but a lot more about best practices, common challenges, and how to address these things. A lot more about how to be fully bilingual and accessible in your team meetings, and what things are available to you. So that's the link to the playbook, the brand new playbook. And now in the community of practice. So there's about 2,900, almost 3,000 people on GC Collab right now on the community of practice, various levels of engagement. There's 1 or 2 meetings a month of the community of practice. About 500 people show up to those meetings. What we found is the high percentage of this current community of practice, a high percentage, is end users really trying to be great, learn tips and tricks, and be really adept at various aspects of 365. What we haven't made clear and really focused on for engagement areas, which we're adding now, is finding out who are the people that are have the accountability and responsibility to be the product management team. What are the hot topics for them, information they need to know, maybe workshops they want to sit down and share with each other and develop best practices, because we're trying to be more enterprise here. Like, think about it. People will leave our department, I don't know about yours, and go to another department, and they'll say, oh my God, I hate it over here because we don't have the same tools that we had at SSC. And there's an opportunity to be far more consistent in an employee experience around the GC, and just by sharing best practices. So we want to get the IM folks. What are you doing in life cycle management? We want to look at people, SharePoint, get the global admins together, you know, comments on the guardrails, things that are their pressures they're getting for your tenant in terms of configuration, and then the adoption teams, get them together. Like, you know, I'm responsible for driving adoption across the whole department, getting culture change. Let's all get together in a place where we can talk and have topics covered for that. So we've heard that. All of you are asking for it. We're doing it. So stay tuned. User experience, this is to let you know that SSC does track all of the accessibility and bilingual or official languages issues that the platform, where there's an issue or deficiency or something not working properly. When you get any, whether it's a language complaint or accessibility concerns, and it's about the platform, not because your users didn't configure their SharePoint site right, but about the platform, that email you can send to, and they'll field them all and tell you what they track everything. So a good resource for you. And I've also provided another one that they're responsible for the playbook. They do share out the Microsoft training link. I just wasn't quite sure where to put it, so it's there for you. Okay, IM community folks. We're now working with TBS. They had some draft guidance. It kind of needed to be dusted off. It needed to be modernized. The idea is to come up with an IM guide for 365 that has a tone of encouragement with due diligence, not a tone of discouragement. And so stay tuned. We're going to reach out to the departmental IM leads. We're kind of recruiting people to get involved. As soon as over the next month and a half, we sit down with TBS and kind of get it all spruced up and modernized and put all the components in there, you know, recordings, chat, how long should chat last, and so forth. Then we'll get it out to the IM leads for a big review. But bottom line is, and that's my blue box. There are client liaisons in the branch to help all the departments, and you're probably familiar with there's client execs in SSC that take care of talking to your CIO, saying, you know, how are we doing on your business requests, SSC services. This is more about what you have to do, getting this community together and helping you be successful. And so there are not SSC services per se. So you can always get in touch with the client liaison, and or you can actually email me. And these are the kind of things that are coming. And by the way, there is we're looking at a innovation challenge in the spring, and I'm not sure where we're going to have it. Somewhere like Bayview Yards, but stay tuned. We'll tell you all about that. We'll also make it pretty clear on where kind of like the newsletter hot news is for what events are coming up and what we're working on. So bottom line, guys, I'm really proud of the team that I've just handed over at in SSC CIO. I've done an amazing job bringing everything to everybody. And I was even talking to my IM policy lead yesterday and reflecting on the last few years, and we were saying, you know what, I guess we took risks because there's sprawl here and there's stuff there, but or I'm in too many teams, but does it really matter? Like nothing really bad has happened, and now we're doing a really nice job of tidying up, cleaning up, having tighter life cycle management. So the journey ahead looks good. And then along comes Copilot. So that's another topic. That's pretty much what I had for this morning. Other than, I just want to, I'm going to show you what I have added to the appendix, just because I'm not covering those slides. So I just had a nice little summary of benefits of cloud-based apps. But I also have kind of like the backup of what I was talking about and my key points. And before I did the presentation, I made sure that there was somebody who seemed to agree with me. And it turns out Gartner kind of does. And they said, and I'll give you these slides where they're saying people have, this is over a survey they did of over 150 clients, most of them over 9,000 users running M365. And they have similar challenges, difficulties with governance, adoption, and support. Often, they found that a lot of people in their client organizations were trying to take an old traditional IT approach, and they had fragmented pieces and teams instead of one team that had the breadth of expertise to support it. Because as you guys know, everything in this platform is all highly integrated together and touches each other. So you can't really support it in pieces. And a couple more thoughts. So, you know, there's some recommendations from Gartner. Have a product team, have an owner, make sure your governance is sharp. So a few slides there I left for you. So I will now stop sharing and give you back to Eric.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. That was an excellent summary. I find it interesting. We're closely aligned, Jeff, you and sort of your mandate at Orangutech, and we've seen many of those, you know, Gartner findings as well. As it on the projects that we've been successful with departments, it's been big buy-in. You have a dedicated team, you have product owners, and you have people engaged in the project. So we would echo many of the same things. We actually have little to no questions, Jeff. So I think you answered everybody's questions with your presentation.
I doubt that, but that's okay. We've left them enough links, Eric, to show them how to get to us. And absolutely, it's our job to engage with these folks and to help them in every way we can. And because they have to, on the ground, run their tenant, they're the operations. But hopefully we're sharing as many insights as we can. And I just want to say thank you to Orangutech. That's something that I don't want to forget to mention. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to gather the community and talk to them on this venue. So thank you, Orangutech. And also note, folks, there are people like Orangutech in town and others that some of you have at least some familiarity with, who are experts in how to drive these change, how to implement E5, stuff like that. So certainly don't forget to look around and see where you can get that expertise.
course, thank you, Jeff, and of course I'm biased. I think we provide the best expertise, but I'm of course biased for that. So quick from Sunny asked about the translations. How are you doing those translations, Jeff, on your PowerPoint?
Okay, so that's worth mentioning. Nice to see you, Sunny. Always good to talk to you. First of all, when you go to your standard desktop PowerPoint, go to your slideshow view. I don't really know the options offhand right now. So go and I think I have it here. Slideshow. Go to slideshow. And then when you hit slideshow, the ribbon will show you over on the right, it says always use subtitles, and you can set the subtitle setting for, in my case, I set it to the spoken language to English and the subtitle language to French. So that's one where you have subtitles. We at SSC, inside of SSC, Sunny, typically recommend, if you possibly can, use PowerPoint Live over PowerPoint, because PowerPoint Live will let any participant change all your slides instantly to the language of their choice, and it'll instantly translate every single slide, even though you might not be presenting bilingual slides, right? And people can move forward and backward in the presentation. PowerPoint Live is ultra cool. The problem in why I use this today, the older one, just a screen share as opposed to a PowerPoint Live share, was because I get those captions in French underneath always happening. So that was the first thing I showed you. So that's how you make it work, Sunny.
Awesome, thank you, Jeff. That's a great little tip and trick. So just Sunny, it's just to recap, it's not using Teams, it's using the PowerPoint app. So it's PowerPoint that can do that has that functionality, not Teams. And yes, we are using Teams Live, so there is no PowerPoint Live available for Teams Live yet. I'm sure they'll pump it out at some point. A question from Danny: what is the tool you are using to monitor M365 roadmap at SSC?
So there's what's in the deck. There's screenshots, okay? So you've got the usage. If you're a reports reader, get the admin rights to be reports. If you're an adoption team or a product management team member, you don't need to be global admin, and you don't need to be the SharePoint or Teams administrator. You just need to ask for message reader and reports reader. And you can get the message center for what's coming, and you get the reports reader, gives you your usage reports, the one I showed you, and also ask your global admin to spin up that Microsoft usage report. That's a Power BI, it's a live Power BI, it's pretty cool. I don't know how you guys allocate Power BI licenses, but it'll vary from department to department. So awesome. That's the road. Now, the roadmap of M365, like the Microsoft roadmap, that's just on the internet. That's public. Anybody can go see that from any computer. Somebody asked about GCdocs.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I've got a resourcing. I'll let you go through them.
Yeah. I'll go through them. That one. We'll get to that one closer to the end. I posted Jeff's email in the Q&A, just sort of made an announcement. His email's there, so you can contact him at any time. Jason from CBSA says, great slide deck, thank you. What were your resource requirements from a staffing perspective to get all the back-end infrastructure set up and running before you started to deploy tools and apps to the end user base? Perception is that the endpoints are easier to out than the back-end.
Endpoints are easier to out than the back-end. Okay, before we get it all set up, there was like 3 or 4 of us, right? I was lucky I had an absolute genius for global admin who actually left me to go to CBSA, but I'm still crying over that one. But The team is about 15 people, really, for that diagram I showed you for all those functions. It's about 15 people. I think that's your answer. Now, as far as the desktops, when you say endpoint, if you talk about desktops, there was a whole crew of half a dozen people that, because we had to go to 10,000 people and deploy what we call the cloud managed desktop. So we deployed every desktop in SSC with Intune, and it's beautiful. It's fast and it's beautiful.
There was a typo in the question. It was, the perception is that endpoints are easier to put out than the back end. So I guess the question is just like their perception is that endpoints are easier than the back end. So maybe if you want to comment on that, Jeff, if that typo clears things up.
I wouldn't. Yeah, it does clear things up. I wouldn't rate one harder than the other, personally. I think you're the endpoints, if you're talking about the laptops and that sort of stuff, you still need a desktop team. And I don't know how you support your desktops, but you know, the level of effort doesn't really change with 365. It probably goes down a little bit because you're going through split tunneling. You're updating the machines faster and more effectively. You're not affecting your networks or clogging them when there's a big update of 20,000 computers. But I don't know. Jason, I'm not sure I fully understand what you're thinking, but I don't think I would go harder or easier. I think the back end is a lot of work, and it's always a lot of work. You're going to need to have your 2 global admins, right? For the back end.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jeff and Jason. Again, Jeff's email is in there, so feel free to reach out to Jeff for more clarification if you need it. This conversation can continue. Alex asked a question. Can you talk more specifically about the makeup of that team you said that supports M365? So Jeff, maybe that's in regards to the internal team that supports M365 that you spoke about.
Okay, so yeah, we have what I was calling stakeholder. Like, first of all, it's very wordy, that slide, and you're going to get a copy of the slide. So take a look at it if you want to talk about, maybe get together about what's different about yours, or why we picked one. Happy to do that, right? But take a look at that slide. But if you're talking about the makeup, those are the people that were under what we called CIO Collaboration Solutions Division, right? So it's director, manager, whatever. And the people along the bottom, where I mentioned, in the security operations, security policy, accessibility, IAM policy, IAM operations people, those people are in that bi-weekly we call it our technical board meeting, to say somebody wants to, either they would be bringing something they want to see introduced, like we'd like to do lifecycle management on recordings, and here's how the user, you're going to need a user comms on it. Those guys would be in what I call the governance rhythm of the every other week, and they're in and have a voice, right? But the product team are basically the owners, and they're saying, hey, we want to, in keeping with our North Star, we want to add this app, or we want to allow guests to do this, or we want to do that. And then we just sold the policy people on how would be best to mitigate it. So if you want to talk about it more relative to your own situation, sure, give me a call. But I think that slide should answer that, and with that context.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Next question coming from Anonymous. Is SSC still using GCdocs? And if so, are you using a connector?
So those are actually, I'm going to take that as 2 different questions. So first of all, SSC is definitely still using GCdocs, but there's no intention to have any connectors to it. The idea is to blow it away. So There's a significant project in CIO and SSC called IM Modernization. Actually got approved from GCERB, Treasury Board, as one of the pathfinders, moving towards everything being managed in 365. And then once that's all set up, there is pilots starting now. Then ultimately, and that's one of the reasons we have E5 for a lot of those IM functions. But then we'll migrate everything off of GCdocs. That's I know there's 3 or 4 approaches to this. That's the one we chose.
Thank you, Jeff. And just for transparency's sake, Orangutech is actively working with SSC on that IM modernization initiative as well. So
oh, that's right. You have some key resources on the team. Yep.
Exactly. So that's an area of expertise for us. So a question from Alistair Smith. What principle do you use to determine how much to share in the roadmap?
Trying to understand digesting the question.
Sure. Well, we'll come back.
Yeah, I think I understand the question.
Okay.
So I think when you look at like the roadmap or whatever, we're pretty transparent. What we try and do is share, like, all right, 2 things: Message Center, roadmap. Message Center is stuff that's kind of immediate. It's coming. We're going to add this. There's going to be there's a principle on what's imminent, which is in the Message Center, and we cherry pick through that and say, okay, here's one where Teams, as of next month, will automatically lower your hand when you stop talking. Right? Okay, well, that's nice. We're not flagging that as something to spend any effort on. People will see it themselves and they'll think, hey, that's cool. Oh, here's one that says we're actually going to allow people to add pronouns to the profile. Okay, that one needs a communique. So we that's what I meant by weekly. You go look at the Message Center, what's imminent, what's coming, and then triage. Okay, there's 3 or 4 things, maybe 2 in the next week or so. Let's get ready to share with users. There's an impact and how they deal with it, right? That's the near term stuff. The roadmap, if you mean the question about, as of next year or January, you'll be able to set up your entire schedule in Teams as to whether you're at the office and which office on a particular day versus at home on that day, or there's a new app coming out or whatever. Well, first of all, we want to make sure that it's not something that users are going to have to pay for, because this doesn't mean you're going to buy it because we're spending enough already. And Microsoft always is trying to upsell on some things that might be nice, but we probably don't have a business case for. The next thing we do is we say, well, we try and get a champions meeting, which we run once a month, and tell the champions, this is the scoop, guys. There's some new stuff coming. It's not in yet. It's in public preview, and we can show you a little bit of what it's going to look like. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know when it's closer to landing and how we're going to implement it. So I think that's a thorough answer to your question on terms of how we go about sharing.
Thanks, Jeff. And the amount of content and apps and services that Microsoft is pushing out, I think it's overwhelming, the amount of stuff that they're putting out these days. So Alistair, to your point, and there is so much content in the Microsoft roadmap. So I think SSC and Jeff does a great job of looking at what's relevant and what is going to, what is actually value add for what departments need in the present time. So another question, Jeff, we've blown up with questions since I said that you answered everybody's questions with your presentation. So I think I might have been a little off there, but it has, let's see. So Ian Arnold, hi, Jeff. Thank you for your presentation. Can you briefly describe your IM architecture in SharePoint Online at SSC, given that it will replace GCdocs? Also, how do you monitor your SharePoint Online environment for compliance with your IM architecture? That's from Ian.
Okay, so briefly, first of all, I'm going to suggest, Ian, that we connect. Just spent quite a bit of time yesterday with the CRA folks talking about the vision, the architecture, where they're going, where we're going, and how we're doing it. So I'll give you a very brief answer for the purposes of this session, though. SharePoint is available and has been for anybody with a team. You can open in SharePoint. SharePoint goes with your team, and if you want a team, that's completely up to you. You would know your group, your division, your working group, whatever your project group, whatever in the department, people can ask for a team, they get SharePoint. There's right now no metadata or architecture or anything around that. It's just vanilla. They can create lists, they can create apps, they can do whatever they want. Right? So we're very much around give everybody everything. Okay. Now, the argument about those that are worried about messiness. You know, I mean, 20 years ago, I was the RDIMS guy in the government. Some of you may remember that, right? And I thought naively that you could teach 250,000 people to be tidy. Well, you can't, right? You can't teach a couple to be tidy. So I think that we don't worry too much about that. But what's coming for the record keeping, the repository, the replacement of GCdocs, not the day-to-day working content, is an architecture been worked out, which is basically standalone SharePoint sites with a hub configuration. So we can tell you more about that. And yes, people will, hopefully IA is, you know, an E5 is going to help us automate automatic classifiers, a whole bunch of stuff like that. But there's some really clever stuff that the SSC IM team is doing for provisioning so that things are in IM compliance with the architecture, and some really nice stuff there that you might want to take a look at. If I don't know where you are at CFAA in terms of kind of along your timeline of your project there, but.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ian, for the great question. Another question. We're coming up. We got 8 minutes left here before we get to 2 o'clock. Question here. It has been 2 years since a Office 365 baseline configuration was updated. Are we expecting an update or a working group meeting anytime soon? If so, can you give a timeline?
You're talking about the baseline and the guardrails. Yes, the version 2 is coming out soon. I don't have the timeline, but connect with me and I'll get you hooked up with the folks that are leading on the baseline and that. So there's news to follow there, and just I don't know who you are, anonymous, but you send me an email and we'll get you that information.
Okay, great. Thank you. Last question. What is the direction SSC is currently looking at for Copilot throughout M365?
Great question. So I think everybody has what they're affectionately calling Copilot for Bing in your browser, probably already. That is a fun thing to try and learn and get the hang of. It's all of your tenants will be turned on to what is called Bing Copilot for Enterprise, which means that because you are an enterprise client tenant, all of the stuff that's generated inside your tenant stays within your tenant. It does not go back out. It does not leave your tenant. So that's number one. But generally about Copilot, you're talking about Copilot for Teams, Copilot for Windows, all that stuff, Copilot for Office. So there are currently 5. It is in the future, and it is pretty pricey. It's quite expensive. Not clear what whether anybody could justify it for whom, but it is also, there's a pilot going on right now with 5 government departments. SSC is one of them. The school is another, and I can't remember who the other 3 are. But SSC CIO, not my group now, but over where it was, and CIO is one of the testers. There's going to be volunteers, pilots, testers, and use cases. And it's a pretty significant program with Microsoft. Each department had to kick in some money to be part of the pilot. So that's what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Just to expand on what Jeff said about Copilot, really the foundation of Copilot and AI is your IM in M365, right? Copilot isn't going to be effective or pull on documents that are on premise or in GCdocs. And so the importance of getting your info to M365 and having proper guardrails set up and an IM foundation is integral to any discussion around AI. It's just with AI, it's if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. So you're not going to gain the full functionality if you're not feeding it what it needs. Last question: has SSC looked at Microsoft Purview modules of insider risk management? If so, any feedback?
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely part of the E5 implementation. E5 is really more of a security story than anything. Fully integrated security, insider risk, all that kind of stuff. Where security operations is spinning up, operating, running. And another thing which is kind of nice with if you have E5 is for anti-phishing campaigns within your department, you know, like those things you run. I mean, our security people were spending like $100,000 a quarter just to go get a firm to conduct one for them. All those tools are included in your E5. So if you do have E5, so take a look at that and see if if you have it. Make sure you're getting the value out of it. So there are people that are buying E5 and not implementing it, which is a shame and a waste of money. So if you have it, take a look at it and see if you can spin it up. Dennis had something on the GCER presentation, and I think he meant the one. Hi, Dennis. I think he meant the one of ours that went to ERB. Yep. And actually, it's kind of got a nice slide on different options that were picked. We've actually diverged from that direction and are going a little bit more standard with our IM. Walk before we run, because we told GCER we're doing stunning automation and stuff, but that's not in scope yet. We're going to get the fundamentals right, get the architecture right, and but the presentation is on all the GCERB. If you have access, just sign in, and it's right there on GC Collab. But I can probably go find a copy of it for you.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, sorry, I missed Dennis. I apologize. I missed your question there. We got quite the influx of questions, which was great. And Dennis, again, we've been an active part with SSC in that IM modernization journey. So we've been working with SSC for quite some time on that, Dennis. So we are happy to engage as well. So that wraps up our council meeting for Q4. Jeff, any last words before we sign off at the hour?
Just everybody, it's exciting to have the opportunity this coming year to work with you all. I'm looking forward to it a lot. And any way I can help, I hope. But I'm going to tell you something. There's a number of departments there that are smarter than me, and they've done some great stuff. So I mean, one of our goals here is to get you hooked up with each other as well and say, okay, what have you, that's really cool what you guys at Transport have done. You guys have done this amazing stuff over here at ISET, and on we go. So let's get more people, more material on succeeding.
Awesome.
And have a great Christmas, everybody.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And in that vein, our next council meeting will be in the new year. We will be doing it in person at the Microsoft office. And in the exact same vein of what Jeff just shared about departments sharing what they've done, we'll have TBS sharing their journey to effective IM and M365. They have some successes. They have some lessons learned. It will be in February. That will be in person at the Microsoft Ottawa office here downtown. And that will be our next meeting. So we will make sure that gets out to everybody. Sunny, just saw your comment. Great session. Thank you. Of course, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom around the platform and around M365. I wish everybody a great rest of your afternoon. And if you have some vacation time coming up, enjoy the break. Have a great winter holiday, everybody. Bye.